are, my man?
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of CFL Summer Showcase Northern Lights. Sorry about that. We are here to preview the Grey Cup. We finally are to that point. This season flew by. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but Saskatchewan, Montreal, it's going to be a great game coming up next week. So on that note, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the news that Ottawa has a new head coach. Toronto will be looking for a head coach, and a couple other things along the way. So stick tuned, stick around, get in the comments, let us know your thoughts about everything that's happened, and we'll see how we go through this. All right, we are back, and like I said before, we are previewing the Grey Cup. I mean, man, like I said, this season has flown by. I don't know how you feel, Michael. First of all, how are you doing this morning?
Good, my man. Good. I mean, yeah, the season's flown. I mean, if you truly think about it, like every time the football season starts, it feels like it just flies. I mean, if you truly sit down and think about it, week 10 of the NFL season is upon us, like week 10. So yeah, I mean the CFL flies. I mean, what is it, 23, 21 weeks or 22 weeks or something like that? And I mean, and it just it goes, and I guess you just don't realize how fast time flies unless you're a football fan, for the most part.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Because honestly, it does not feel like we should already be, through the playoffs and to this point. But it just, yeah, it went by quick. But one of the things that we're going to talk about first here recently happened. The Ottawa Red Blacks had hit the reset button. They fired Bob Dice shortly after the season, which at this point was like 2 weeks ago. Again, feels
Yep.
like it was yesterday. But they've already hired a new coach, and it not only answered some questions in Ottawa, but it opened up some pretty dramatic questions in Toronto. So, obviously, as everybody knows at this point, Ryan Dinwiddie accepted the head coach and general manager position with the Ottawa Red Blacks, and will be jumping over there for the 2026 season. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this, from both sides, because obviously this not only affects Ottawa, this dramatically affects Toronto as well. So, I mean, where do you think they go from here on both sides?
Well, this is an interesting one because obviously Toronto's season didn't really go the way that everybody expected it to. They mishandled the Chad Kelly situation pretty much all year long, and I'm sure there's some frustrations internally inside the organization. I don't know how much of the frustrations were from Ryan Dinwiddie's point, but this kind of feels like this was like a move of maybe Ryan didn't really like the direction Toronto was going, or didn't like the foundation or plan in place to be able to see what the future is going to hold for this team. He's offered the head coaching and the GM spot. It's similar to the oh, what the hell was his name over there in Edmonton? Chris Jones. When he had that power as well. So maybe it was the fact that he gets control now over who's signed, how they're signed, where they play, stuff like that. But um, it's a power move by Ottawa on this side. Let's talk about that for a second, because if you truly think about Ottawa, they've kind of been reeling the last few years. They've been kind of middle of the pack, even when they have made the playoffs. Like, it's no disrespect to the coaching staff or Bob Dice at all over there, but it didn't work out the way that I think everybody had hoped it was going to. So Ottawa was like, basically, well, what do we do? Well, let's hard reset and let's go get one of the biggest names in coaching in the CFL and see if maybe we can and maybe can become a appealing source for free agents and for people who want to come here and play. And honestly, Ryan Dinwiddie is exactly what you're going to want to do in that situation if that's the case. Um, we'll get into Toronto in a minute a little further, but I want your thoughts as the resident Ottawa guy. Um, how or what the feeling has been amongst Ottawa fans, and how do you view this move? Because to me, it's a power move, and it feels like it's a move basically saying, yeah, well, we may have not been, Ottawa of the last few years, but we're going to be Ottawa of the future. So,
I mean, I can't honestly speak for other fans, but I'm excited. I mean, honestly, I expected us to hire like an up and coming coordinator, a guy like Jason Shivers. For some odd reason, felt like a really um, a really logical choice for Ottawa moving forward. But to go out and get Ryan Dinwiddie was something that I never truly believed was on the table. And kudos to Three Down Nation. They were on this early. I just dismissed it because I was like, you know what? It's one of those rumors every year. You hear about it. Established coach, not necessarily thoroughly happy with his position that he's in currently. He starts kind of shopping around a little bit, seeing where he could go, seeing what he could get. Maybe he gets a crazy offer money wise, and then he decides to leave. But I just have never felt like Ottawa was the type of organization that was going to be this aggressive in a hire. And I feel like this is exactly what the organization needed. They needed somebody who can come in, be a proven winner, who has proven that he can win at every level. You know, he's been a quarterback coach that found a lot of success. He was a quality control guy with Calgary early in his career. You know, found success there. I believe he won a Grey Cup with them as well. Won two Grey Cups in 5 seasons with Toronto as a head coach, and his first ever opportunity to be a head coach. So, I mean, this dude's record is unbelievable. And honestly, I just never thought we would have a coach quite like this in Ottawa during my time following the team. And even after a 5-13 season, the guy's got a 51-35 career record as a head coach, which is just insane. So, I'm very excited. I think this was a home run hire that I never really thought was realistic. And I think that, regardless of the fact that we had to give him the GM power, I think it was time for a reset at GM as well. As much as I like Sean Burke and some of the moves that he's made, I feel like we've been treading water for years now. So it's time to put somebody else in power. And yes, Burke's still there with a little bit of oversight, but I think Dinwiddie has been among some of the best talent evaluators in the CFL from the time he entered coaching, or really from the time he entered the league as a player all the way till now. So I think he's uniquely prepared to jump into these shoes and be able to serve as, potentially a GM, head coach, and continue to serve as the offensive coordinator as well. So, we'll see if he decides to bring in a coach there, but I think it's a huge hire for Ottawa. I'm very excited. I think all the fans should be excited because this proves that Ottawa wants to win and they want to win now.
my only concern with this move would be adding GM if he doesn't take the offensive coordinator spot off. I feel like he'd be adding too much to his plate. So I think that it would be necessary, or his best move as the head coach slash GM would be to bring in an offensive coordinator to take that load off of him from that standpoint. My only other concern is also, is this going to be a Bill Belichick situation? Like, just because you're a talent evaluator as a head coach doesn't mean you necessarily know how to put a team together through the intricacies of contracts and building a team from the front office side of things. We all saw that Bill Belichick, the coach, was much better than Bill Belichick, the GM, kind of ruined the Patriots for a little bit. They've bounced back now. My concern with any time you see a head coach slash GM that's not designed to be a head coach slash GM, it would be this particular scenario. Now, not saying that Dinwiddie can't do it. I think Dinwiddie is a great talent evaluator. I completely agree with you on that front. I just worry, is it going to be too much of an adjustment to try to learn the front office side of things? So keeping Burke on was a fantastic move by the organization, because at least you now have somebody who can kind of also oversee and guide Dinwiddie as he adjusts to this new role. But if you're a Red Blacks fan, you should absolutely be excited for this move. Absolutely should be excited for this move.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Dinwiddie's career as a coach, I mean, he's been around guys like John Murphy and Pinball Clemens there in Toronto for multiple years. Also, John Huffnagel and a couple other guys along the way that are regarded as some of the best in that GM position ever in the game. So to be able to go ahead and give him that power, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. And then on the flip side, like you mentioned, keeping Sean Burke, he's a guy who has seen every different facet of the front office. So I think he's a guy that was a natural progression into like a vice president role eventually. I think what's catching a lot of people off guard is how it happened. Obviously he has not found the success as the GM of the Ottawa Red Blacks that you would expect prior to a move like this. But at the same time, I believe that this was their way of, like you said, keeping him involved on more of the business side while allowing a football guy to come in and have final roster say. So honestly, I think this could work out to be a very good situation depending on how they work together. So, if I was Burke, I'd not necessarily tread lightly, but I would try and somewhat cater to him and make sure that he knows that you're there to support him, not get in his way.
He can't micromanage. I mean, at the end of the day, he can't micromanage because Dinwiddie's going to have his own style, his own progress, his own process. He's going to be the one that is going to find a way to have to make this work. And if Burke is going to sit there and micromanage him every step of the way, Dinwiddie and him are going to clash, and that's going to just probably come out on the field in the product that Ottawa puts out there. So hopefully that's not the case. Obviously, we know the CFL, they don't have long contracts like the NFL does. A lot of times their contracts are 1 year and done. So my other question to you would be, do you expect to see a Toronto exodus that leads to Ottawa because Dinwiddie moved? Or do you think that the Toronto Argonauts have a brand name enough that they're going to be able to retain and get players that want to stay with them moving forward?
Oops, sorry about that. Double click the mute button. So I don't think Toronto is going to have any issue because I think they're going to end up finding another quality head coach. I mean, who that ends up being is, remains to be seen. Wouldn't surprise me to see if they promoted somebody within to try and keep some form of continuity there. But I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus. I think you're going to see some certain players jump over. A guy like DeJohn Brissett, who's a impending free agent. I think that's a guy that could potentially make the jump to Ottawa, especially because we have a couple guys that at wide receiver are free agents. On the defensive side at linebacker, we've got a lot of guys who are free agents. So we could see if they wanted to spend a little bit of money at the position, Winton McManus, I could definitely see him jumping over. Isaac Darkangelo, another guy that I think could maybe make the jump, but I don't necessarily anticipate a huge transition. I would be shocked to see maybe even like 8 or 9 players come from Toronto. Now, with that being said, there's players already on the roster that have ties to Dinwiddie from Toronto in the past. There's a guy like Darius Bledek. You've got Daniel Edeboboye at running back, a Darius Pickett, Jonathan Jones, Robert Priester. So, there's a lot of guys that have spent time in Toronto that you could retain and still get the same effect, right? In fact, our defensive coordinator, Will Fields, came from Toronto last season. So he's another guy that he's the only coach under contract right now. So you probably retain him too. So I think we're in a unique scenario where Dinwiddie's coming in. He's got some of the building blocks in place that he already wants. Like he mentioned recently, he's going to build with Drew Brown. So I don't necessarily think we're going to see a hard reset to that extent. Now, I think certain position groups will. If they don't hard reset an offensive line, they're not paying attention. So
Right. Yeah.
that's the one area where I really hope that we see a mass exodus and some really a good infusion of new blood. But the one thing that I also like about this is that you're bringing him in and you're giving him the top overall pick in the draft. You know, we still have 7 of our 8 overall picks. You know, we've got the global draft as well. So a lot of ability for him to come in and reset this roster quick. I think we've got 36 free agents right now. So if he wanted to, he could sweep out, you know, a good chunk of the players that have been here for a while.
I am glad they made the move now because it gives him time. It was early in the process. It was really, really early in the process. They let go of Dice, and they didn't wait for the end of the season to make a move. You know, Dinwiddie was done with Toronto. The regular season was over. Playoffs had started, and they were like, hey, why don't you come, you know, be a head coach here? So this gives him plenty of time. Now, Toronto has to act quick, in my opinion, because if Toronto doesn't act quick enough, they're going to fall behind the 8 ball because time is going to become a restraint. Now, it's very possible that they're waiting for somebody that's still in the playoffs. They might have their eye on somebody from Montreal or Saskatchewan that they are seriously considering to be the head coach, and they have to wait for the season to end before that happens. I don't know. Maybe this week we see something with the 2 teams that were eliminated between Hamilton and BC. Maybe we see something there. But I feel like that the reason why Toronto has kind of sat on their hands a little bit and it's been a little quiet right now, even though the Dinwiddie move just happened, is primarily because I feel like they may be waiting. I think there's somebody under contract that they have an eye on. I'm not really 100% sure who, to be honest with you. I was thinking maybe the offensive coordinator in Hamilton because he had such a good year this year. Kind of a little bit of a resurgence for Bo Levi while he was there. Maybe he comes in and kind of helps aid Chad Kelly. But I'm not really sure overall if it's that or if it's Toronto just doesn't know because they're scrambling internally. That's the other part of this. Like, did it take them by surprise that Dinwiddie left? So I know it's not a long period of time as far as like what it's a week and a half this was announced ago or so whatever, but it just feels eerily quiet coming out of Toronto as far as possible coaching candidates and who could possibly replace Dinwiddie there. And those are the only 2 scenarios I keep coming back to is either they're internally panicking or they have their eye on somebody that's under contract with one of the remaining teams.
Have you seen the speculation about Mike O'Shea?
I did, but I feel like that if Mike O'Shea was going to make a move, he would want to make a move earlier than later, and I feel like it would have already have come together because Winnipeg was eliminated in the first round. Maybe there's more intricacies behind it, but I don't know if it makes sense for Mike O'Shea to make the move. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I mean, he's built a powerhouse in Winnipeg, and maybe, you know, it's gotten stagnant there for him. And that would be the only reason I could see him wanting to go and just have a new challenge to kind of rebuild Toronto, so to speak. But at the same time, I never really thought it was super plausible. But then again, Dinwiddie, I didn't think Dinwiddie was plausible either.
That's
So
fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
We could see what if they go out and try to like lure in Corey Mace, you know, after this run.
And Corey Mace is an interesting candidate, but again, I don't know if Corey would want to make the move because it just wouldn't really feel like it would make much sense right now. Like Toronto reeled this year; they had a horrible year, and I know they had a ton of injuries, and that Chad Kelly situation was super weird. But I just feel like Corey is building something in Saskatchewan. Like I feel like this is still like a momentum thing. Like I don't feel like that this is the peak, even if they lose to Montreal in the Grey Cup. I don't feel like that this is the end of the story of Corey Mason's in Saskatchewan. So I know that Toronto is going to need to get somebody in there that's going to be appealing enough so that they don't lose grip on what Dinwiddie had built before leaving. It just feels very odd, I guess is really the best word to describe it, that we haven't really heard anything concrete coming out of the Toronto camp as far as potential potential head coaching candidates.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be because they're looking internally. It just depends. But I think that there's a multitude of good head coaching candidates out there, and I think that there's a lot of different guys that are now eliminated from the playoffs that deserve at least some looks. And if you're Toronto and Dinwiddie moves on, and I mean, you still have building blocks in place to make this a playoff team, no matter who you hire as the coach. So I think you got to be careful to an extent and make sure you hire the right coach who doesn't want to come in and necessarily blow up the roster, because you've got the pieces in place. It's been put on display for 4 years prior to this season. So I know there was some frustration with some of the personnel decisions this offseason, but at the same time, I mean, maybe a new coach gets a fresh perspective and he's not so upset about it because it's better than what he's had in years past, or, what have you. So I also think that this is a landing spot where we might see somebody who's a younger coach, just similar to, Dinwiddie, how he got his first head coaching opportunity in Toronto, primarily because they have such an established front office that can build the roster around him, that I think maybe they can afford a guy who hasn't been there and done that yet. And it might be a little bit easier for them to work cohesively with a coach who doesn't want control of every facet of the roster, such as a Dinwiddie who's a little bit more of a veteran. So just another perspective. There's a lot of different wrinkles here, and I think that Toronto is probably reeling a little bit. I would imagine they probably had some sort of indication he wasn't happy prior to this, but I think him actually leaving was probably a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, in order for Toronto to regroup and regain control of their situation, their composure has to stay intact, and the longer it stays quiet, the more deafening it is. I feel like, just because they clearly didn't have a plan in place for this, or like I said, maybe they did, and maybe they're waiting for contracts to expire based upon what's happening in the playoffs. But it just doesn't feel. It feels very un-Toronto like this season has pretty much so far, to not really have a plan to tackle, the bumps in the roads or the detours.
Absolutely agree on that part. I mean, this whole season has felt off for, the Argos, but, they've been injured. They've had a lot of different situations pop up this season that have been tough to kind of weather. So maybe a hard reset is what they needed as well, So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this affects both franchises going forward. And I think regardless of what happens, we're going to look back on this moment and be looking at the ripple effects of this move for probably 5 to 10 years from now, to be quite honest, because it's rare when you get this big of a move that affects two franchises in this capacity. So
yeah.
I expect to see the ripple effects for multiple years. But real quick, we're going to hit a commercial. We'll come back. We're going to talk about how Michael literally predicted the entire playoffs perfectly, and then I didn't do so well. And then we'll also talk about how Montreal and Saskatchewan got here. I mean, we kind of identified these teams early on as competitors, but here we are, and finally in the big game.
This is Current. It's the card my parents used to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school.
Oh, wow.
This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I used to do the things that really matter. This is Current.
Yo, what's good? Cedric the bus driver here. I don't know about you guys, but I know what I will be doing every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Thursday nights too. I'll be over at Shady Sports Network, so catch up with me. Holla at your boy.
Excuse me.
So, real quick before we continue, the Cedric commercial there with the bus stop reminded me. He mentioned that there was no bus stop this week, and I had missed a lot of messages in the group chat, and I clicked on the little Meta AI and get the summary of what the messages are, because it always cracks me up when I read it. And the first thing it said was no school. Cedric mentions that there was no bus stop this week. I was like, well, first and foremost, it's a Saturday. It's not a literal bus, Meta. It's not a literal bus, Meta. But it just cracked me up, and I just thought I had the flashback of that when I saw the commercials. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I apologize when I jumped back on here. I just ran real quick and ran back. Only had 50 seconds, so had to make it quick.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely tell that you're in shape, so that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Don't worry, I'd probably be just as bad off as you, so don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't run, so.
All right, so let's pull up this bracket you made a couple weeks ago and discuss how it's fallen. As you can see, the left side is Michael Washington, the right side is myself, which is ironic because we are on the opposite sides of the camera right now. So it's just kind of how it happened. I don't know. I apologize for that, the slight little wrinkle there. But as you can see, as we worked our way through the playoffs, Michael literally predicted every game correct, all the way up to the Grey Cup results, or not the Grey Cup results, but the teams that have gotten to the Grey Cup at this point. I was slightly off. I was going with Winnipeg.
You have one
I was really off.
You got one correct game in there, Sam.
Yeah, well, it was the one that counted. Two.
I guess you
actually
could possibly say two, because you did have Hamilton losing in the area where Montreal beat them, but you had the wrong team. So I guess maybe we'll give you a half point on that.
See,
maybe.
And Saskatchewan's still in the Grey Cup, so that's
at least. I mean, at least you got Saskatchewan, in there, so that's a positive.
I still have them winning, so I still have the possibility of that being right as well. So
you do. This is true.
Just saying. I got something right. I don't know what it was. I just felt really good about what Winnipeg had going, and I should have thought twice because as we all know, Davis Alexander is undefeated as a Montreal Alouettes starting quarterback. Small little fact that might have changed my opinion had I, really looked into it a little bit. But it's all good. It's all good. Anyway, so if you are placing bets for the Grey Cup, as you can tell, both of us are very high on Saskatchewan. Would recommend, probably leaning that direction with your bets. Unless, of course, you look at my track record, then you may want to go the opposite direction there.
But you look at my track record on the flip side of that, and
that's true.
You may go, okay, maybe this will be. I want to talk real quick about how exciting 3 of the 4, really all 4 of these games were the last 2 weeks. Let's talk about. I mean, all 4 of them were 1-score games. 3 of them ended by 3 points. There was an 11-second game-winning touchdown by Montreal in their game, or Saskatchewan in their game. Trevor Harris's game. There was like 11 seconds left on the clock, and he scored that touchdown. So I mean, a lot of these games really, honestly, were close. I think it goes to show the parity in the league for the most part. Like a few teams, obviously, the teams that didn't make it would be a little bit different of a story. But for amongst the top, 6 teams, really, outside of Montreal beating Winnipeg by like 8, I think it was. They were all 1-score games. So. Kudos to the league, kudos to the CFL organizations, the players involved, and whatnot for being able to put together. Yeah, it was a 9-point game. So, but kudos to them for putting together, an exciting playoff run. Like if you weren't a CFL fan, learning, watching your first playoffs with people, like you couldn't have asked for anything better from amongst these 4 games, in my opinion.
Completely agree. I mean, the Montreal game started off really slow. Yeah. A lot of us were making jokes about how little points were scored, especially coming after the Thursday game with the Broncos and the Raiders. That was terrible. Then the second half kicked in, and all of a sudden they started scoring a little bit, and it got real tight there at the end. It was tied 16-16. Jose Altos Diaz walks on and kicks the field goal, 44-yarder, sails through the uprights, and Montreal goes wild. And that was honestly one of the best finishes I've seen in a game in a long time. It went from a game that just had zero intrigue to all of a sudden like you were glued to your seat, and it was pretty cool to watch how quickly it flipped. And then, like you pointed out, I mean, yes, Montreal won by 9 points over Winnipeg. That's still technically a one-possession game, in the CFL. So keep that in mind. They were within grasp of victory throughout that game. So Calgary as well, they only lost by 3 points. They just couldn't quite get over the hump there at the end. And then Saskatchewan and BC last night as well. It looked like BC had this wrapped up. And then all of a sudden, right there at the end, Saskatchewan just stuck to their guns. They kept playing, and they made it count. And here they are in the Grey Cup, which I believe I mentioned this at one point, but Corey Mace has won a Grey Cup in like every capacity as a coach,
except for as a head coach, right?
Except for as a head coach. And I think it literally has happened in his second year in most of the programs that he's won a Grey Cup with. So it would be ironic if he went out and then won a Grey Cup this season against Montreal this year. So we'll see what happens, but just a little nugget there that you might want to watch out for.
Yeah, for me, it was more or less, Nathan Rourke had such a great season with BC, but Trevor Harris just felt like he wanted it more. As much as BC had, and as well as Nathan Rourke played in that game against Saskatchewan, I just feel like there's a different edge to Trevor Harris this season. There is something about it, and maybe it's because he knows that this is one of his last runs. Maybe that he knows it might be his last run. But I feel like he's playing as a kid again, like the younger version of himself. He seems like he's having fun out there. He's having a great time, and just to be able to see him celebrate with that touchdown, with the game-winning touchdown there against BC was, as a fan, it's hard not to root for a guy like Trevor Harris. So it was definitely fun to watch, and I think Nathan Rourke will be all right. I think BC will be okay. They'll probably be a contender next year, but it feels like, call it destiny, I guess, call it fate, whatever you want. It just feels like that this was Saskatchewan's year. And I said it in the preseason that, they were my dark horse candidate, and I just really felt like they might be the best overall team in the league. And we'll see what happens against Montreal. Davis Alexander's dangerous, and that Montreal team is dangerous. So definitely going to be a tough sledding. Now, mind you, another little nugget for you, Sam, since you're full of nuggets this morning. Davis Alexander in the 2 games against Saskatchewan in the regular season was not the starting quarterback. So throw those 2 games out from the regular season, because it does not matter, because Alexander did not play in those games. It was McLeod Bethel Thompson, I think, both times. So, yeah, that's an interesting nugget. So it's basically like a hard reset. It's like these 2 teams have never faced each other before, essentially.
Interesting. That definitely changes things a little bit, I would say. Man,
I'm still going with Saskatchewan because I'm not going to change my pick now, but it definitely kind of raises some eyebrows when you think about that. Now, Saskatchewan did beat Montreal both times in both those games, I believe, if I remember correctly. However, Davis Alexander was not the starting quarterback and did not play Saskatchewan this year.
That's significant. They're a totally different team with Davis Alexander than they are with MBT, and that's no shade to MBT. He's a great quarterback, but Alexander can move a lot more. He can get out of the pocket. He can run the ball when needed, and it showed last night on a couple of those throws where he was, rolling to his right or left and delivered a dart downfield. I think on one of the touchdown passes in particular, if I remember correctly, he was outrunning defenders, threw the ball on the run, and it was beautiful, right over the hands of defender to the receiver in the end zone. And that's what ended up being, the difference for Montreal to take the lead at first. So, I mean, that's a big factor in this game. So, I mean, I'm not going to change my pick at this point. I mean, I already blew up my board immediately, so I might as well just roll with it. But, yeah, that's definitely an interesting little factoid to keep in mind here if you're placing bets on this game. But the stage is set, Princess Auto Stadium. Trevor Harris Davis Alexander, Montreal Alouettes versus Saskatchewan Roughriders. So if you're watching right now, drop your predictions wherever you're watching in the chat. We would love to hear who you think is going to win this game. Obviously, as we mentioned, both of us have Saskatchewan winning. But one thing we have not done yet is score predictions. We're right here at the game. Do you want to do a score prediction?
Yeah, this is going to be a close one. Also, I want to talk about a little bit of Trevor Harris real quick again. I know he played Montreal twice in the regular season, but this game may be a little more personal because Trevor Harris was the quarterback in Montreal, and he had been there and had some success, but they felt like they needed to move on, so they never re-signed him. And I think that's what led him to Saskatchewan, if my memories serve correctly. So he may take this on a more personal revenge game, now that Davis Alexander, who essentially replaced him, is going to be at the other end, across the sideline. So keep that in mind as well. A lot of narratives, a lot of stories in here. It seems like that with the CFL, when you only have 9 teams, it's pretty intricate not to have stories of some sort. But I think this is going to be a close game. Saskatchewan's played a lot of close games this year. I think Saskatchewan is more suited for the closer games, honestly, than Montreal. But Montreal is such a hard read because Davis Alexander was hurt this year and was not healthy. But now he's healthy, and when he plays, like you said, he's pretty much undefeated as the starting quarterback for the Alouettes. So I think Saskatchewan's defense might be just slightly better as a unit. I think Montreal might have some better players, but I think as a unit, Saskatchewan is better. So I'm going to say I think it's going to be a fairly high-scoring one. I'm going to say 28-26 Saskatchewan. Might be a walk-off field goal, for all I know.
That would be interesting for sure. Man, let's see. I need to look back at the scores for the last 2 games, but
Hamilton did a great job against Montreal, which really kind of surprised me because I said early at halftime that Montreal to the Grey Cup because I didn't think Hamilton was going to have enough. The score was 6-3 at that point.
Yeah,
it was an obnoxiously boring game, but I still didn't feel like Hamilton had enough because of only having 3 points at half. I felt like Montreal was going to be able to run in the second half, and they didn't. Hamilton did a fantastic job. So Saskatchewan may study that tape a little bit and figure out what some of the good things were that Hamilton did to kind of, hold Davis Alexander in check. And on the flip side of it too, I mean, Montreal, they beat Winnipeg by 9, but that game was close for most of the game too. So there's a good chance that there's something in there that might exploit on how to try to at least contain Davis a little bit. And I think Saskatchewan with Corey Mace, they're going to win a tight one. It's going to be close though.
Man, okay, so week 15, Montreal won 48-31. And week 9, Saskatchewan won 34-6. So it sounds like there's going to be a lot of points on the board. Man, that's even tougher.
Playoff football is just different, though.
That's true.
Playoff football just hits different. I mean,
that's true. But it does sound like it's going to be in the 40 range, 40 to 50 range.
Okay.
I mean, you've got it at.
Well, I got it at 54. Yeah, I got it 54. So I thought you meant like double, like both scores, like up in the 80s.
No, definitely not that crazy. But
I'd probably take the over.
Yeah, I would. Over sounds like a good bet.
Depending on what the over is. If the over is like 65, you probably want to avoid that. But
let me pull that up. Well, actually,
I don't think they'll have it up until Monday.
Yeah, good point. Well, Michael says 28-26 Sask. I'm probably gonna go, man, just over that. 31 Saskatchewan, 24 Montreal.
Okay. One score game most likely either way.
Yeah, 100%. I don't anticipate this ending up a blowout on either side. I expect this probably to be one of the best games of the year, to be honest, because both of these teams are extremely talented, and it seems like right now they're both fairly healthy, and hopefully they can go into this next week prepared to play one of the best games of their lives, and we can all get a great game for the Grey Cup.
Yep, Sunday, by the way. Grey Cup Championships on Sunday. You can catch it on CFL Plus on online, basically, CFL.ca. It's called CFL Plus. It's for free.
Wow.
Well, actually, you know what? It might be on CBS. That might be the reason why it's a Sunday game, now that I think about it. It might be on CBS Sports. Either way,
Let me pull
it's
that
either
up real quick so we don't
it's
miss.
either going to be on CBS Sports or CFL Plus here in the States and whatnot. I was bitching about it being on a Sunday, but now that I think about it, CBS Sports has a contract deal with college football in place on Saturdays, so it very well may be so that they could air it on CBS Sports on Sunday. So
that's exactly what it is. CBS Sports Sunday. Internationally, you can watch it on CFL Plus, and then also if you're in Canada, it's on the regular ones: TSN, RDS, and CTV.
Well, there you go.
Kicks off at 6 p.m.
Eastern.
That's a good question.
I think it's Eastern.
Yes,
usually over there Eastern. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So there you go. Should be a great game. I'm wondering who's on the call for the broadcast, but should be interesting either way. Honestly, I think you said it at one point that it was going to be Montreal and Saskatchewan, like early in the season, and I would have to go back and look, to be honest. But
I'm pretty sure that was my preseason prediction.
I'm
Montreal,
almost positive. In fact. Any final thoughts? Anything else you wanted to cover before we get out of here?
I do want to say one thing, and we're going to shift a little bit away from football for a second, but you know, the football world suffered a loss this past week with Marshawn Nealon, 24-year-old defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL. I'm not going to go into the specifics as to what happened or what has been reported has happened, but I want to talk more about the mental health side of things, especially for us men. It is very easy to take mental health and swipe it under the rug and ignore it. Men always feel like we have to take the weight of the world on our shoulders, and sometimes we don't reach out and we don't talk to people. And every year there's a little thing that goes through. It's called No Shave November. It's to raise awareness for mental health, specifically in men. Mental health as a whole matters, but in men it's extremely important, since men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than females are, than women. So I partake in No Shave November. I'm not calling for a cry for an influx of people to partake in it. I just more or less want to make sure that I'm shedding light and awareness on it, and make sure that if you are struggling internally, that there is people out there who will listen to you, even if you don't feel like there are. Go get seen, make sure you get heard, and make sure you're taking care of your own. Also, on the flip side of it, even if you're not struggling with mental health issues, make sure you're reaching out and checking in on people, by all means. There's a phone number, call 1-800-950-NAMI 6264 if you're struggling with depression as well. There's a lot of resources out there locally, on a federal level, even. Like, just make sure you're taking care of yourself, and make sure you're doing your part to help somebody in need if they need to, by all means. It's not something that has personally affected me in my life. I have friends who it has affected them personally in their life, and I've seen what it's done to them. So essentially, just please make sure and understand that you're not alone. And if you happen to know me and we happen to be friends on any of the social media platforms, just reach out to me. I will always listen to you. I do not mind it. Even if you don't even want me to say anything back, I won't. Just know that I will hear you and I will see you, and just take care of your own, and take care of your own mental health, and take care of the people around you, especially in today's world. We need it the most. So
100% well said. I don't think there's much left to say on this episode, but yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's something that we all struggle with is asking for help when you need it. So just know that there are people out there that can help. It sounds goofy, but phone numbers like the one below, you can retain some anonymity, and maybe that helps you speak about some of your problems that you may not want to speak about otherwise. And maybe that helps. So that's just, do what you got to do to get yourself right. At the end of the day, no problem in life is worth ending it all over. So on that note, I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. Thank you guys all for tuning in. And, we hope you guys are all doing well. And if not, definitely make sure to call the number below or like he said, reach out to one of us. We're all happy to help however we can. On that note, we'll catch you guys next week or 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks,
2 weeks from now. 23rd.
Our next episode on the 23rd. So as not to do another Grey Cup preview for the game itself next Sunday. So we'll catch you guys 2 weeks from now on Sunday.
Yo, what's good? Cedric the bus driver here. I don't know about you guys, but I know what I will be doing every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Thursday nights too. I'll be over at Shady Sports Network, so catch up with me. Holla at your boy.